Holy smokes. We are live. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Flugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends if you want to support this Outpost Rebel College Football YouTube channel with a donation. Just hit the $sign, make a comment, make a donation, and I'll get to your super chat as quick as I can. Welcome, everybody. Welcome into the studio that sits on the very corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to be a legend with your comments in the chat room and with your phone calls later in the show. The title of the show is Notre Dame charged with unfair labor practice, National Labor Relations Board. Holy smokes. And I could have titled this show I could have given this title 4 other different titles. We are covering so many stories in college football. Peek around the corners. I don't know what everybody else is doing, but we are covering so many different stories. Stories I haven't even been able to give you the lay of the land on. We are so incredibly busy here at Peek Around the Corner. I thank you all for joining us. Look, first of all, let's just go through what the National Labor Relations Board is. We've done this before. We're going to have to keep doing this. It's an independent National Labor Relations Board forbids employees from interfering, restraining, or coercing employees to exercise their rights. It's an independent federal agency that protects the rights of private sector employees to join together with or without a union to improve their work environment, whatever. Look, and we already saw what happened with Dartmouth and NLRB. It went against Dartmouth. Now we are witnessing. It was look, today today is the last day of the 3-day hearing, I guess you call it, with NLRB versus USC, the Pac-12, and the NCAA. And now Michael, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I call him Hisu. I don't know what his last name is. He's a former Board of Regents at the University of Minnesota. He's the one that filed the paperwork, and NLRB is taking it up. And I got to tell you, I'm going to be careful what I say here. And again, you guys know how I feel about this. Since episode number 1 of our channel, this was our manifesto. This is the straw that is stirring the pot. Student athletes are going to become employees. Eventually, collective bargaining agreement. So I agree with this Michael Hisu, or I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I agree with what he did, but I got to tell you, and I'm going to be very careful what I say here. But that Michael Hisu or Sue, he thank goodness he's a former University of Minnesota Regent. That's all I'm going to say. It did not surprise me that his name was attached to the story. Any story that comes out of the University of Minnesota, any story nationally, the local press, any national story, anything you pick up on that has to do with some supposed scandal at the University of Minnesota in regards to PJ Fleck, that name, Michael Hisu, he's going to be attached to it. This guy is willing to talk to anybody, file against anybody. I'm just going to leave it at that. So I'm not surprised. This is the guy who finally got it through NLRB to go after Notre Dame. And unfair labor practices. Try to have student athletes, having these student athletes named as student athletes and not employees, not getting the benefits of being employees at the university. This is the unfair labor practice charge against Notre Dame, just like it was Dartmouth, just like it was USC, and I'm not disagreeing with it. But again, I'm not surprised that that person's name's attached to this. And that's the last I'm going to say about this particular person, because other than him being the charge on this, the rest of the story is the rest of the story. Notre Dame, in my opinion, has an uphill battle, just like everybody. Eventually, it's everybody. Eventually, student athletes are going to become employees. I mean, look what, we'll get to the story here. I'm skipping all around. I look, we're at the point where if I did a 4-hour show, it wouldn't be enough. That's where we're at. The state of Virginia, Bill HB 1505 is signed. This bill will permit institutions and their fundraising people to create and negotiate NIL opportunities in Virginia. So all those helmets you see on the table there, all those James Madison, all of them. Of course, Virginia Tech, Old Dominion, they're all going to be essentially, not quite, but essentially, it's just the student athletes, while not having representation yet, not for collective bargaining yet, they're going to get paid in ways that they weren't. They're going to receive compensation in the ways they weren't received compensation before. This is going to open up the freedom for Virginia and Virginia Tech to get compensation to their student athletes. And you can see it as an advantage for those institutions. But everyone's going to, in the short term, it's going to be an advantage. But this is where it's all going. This is where it's all going. And the NLRB action is speeding up the process. So it's not going to be just about Notre Dame, obviously. But Notre Dame, man, I mean, they're, some of these institutions now, some of these institutions are going to have a decision to be made. And I think most of them are just going to do what they have to do, right? Student athletes are going to become some type of employees, have some sort of representation, and bargain with the school or conference. In Notre Dame, their football program, I mean, the football program, the university is going to have to negotiate eventually with somebody representing the players. And their hockey team, men's hockey team, is probably going to be a part of the Big Ten when the Big Ten Hockey Conference negotiates, has at least some sort of guardrails for the student athletes. And then each individual school has a certain guardrail into having that recruit sign some sort of contract. Notre Dame it's going to be very, very complicated. It's going to get very, very complicated. Big Dog Daddy, thank you so much for your incredible generosity once again. Holy smokes. Mr. Husky, I do appreciate it. Rebel Leader, thank you, Big Dog Daddy. Thank you so much. So let me thank everybody. Let me thank everybody for coming on in. And then we're going to get to the story and a whole lot more. We have an update in the Holy Smokes Theater when it comes to the matinee. We told you 2 days ago, we opened it up. Pack 2 and Friends, that's what it's called. We gave you the lay of the land. We gave you the seating arrangement. It's all real. We've got more information. We actually received information during the live show, but I did not feel comfortable going with it. But we are very comfortable going with it. We are keeping our head on a swivel when it comes to Pickens County. I'll show you that when it comes to the ACC versus Clemson. We got Portal. We've got everything going on in college football. Skull Ducky is here. The Walking Geek, Stephen McNeely. Kay Struthers. Caleb Ramirez, Mr. Monkey Says, Lee, Kirk Bender, David Hackett, Mr. Cyclone, Matt Neeson, Derek Marie, Joaquin Morales, Chief Ann is in the house. Tough Tony is in the house. Skull Vikings. Skull Vikings. Go get Drake May. Go get Drake May. Cam and B, Rock Chalk, Jayhawk. Preston from Greensboro. Raider Vision. Texas Tech Red Raider. Jay Chapman is here. Mr. Clemson Tiger DP is here. And of course, Big Dog Daddy, Ray L.A. Why just Notre Dame? Well, it's not going to be just Notre Dame. It wasn't just Dartmouth. It wasn't just USC. But that's what NLRB was willing to take. When somebody files something, I don't know how it all works. Richard L., Mr. Colorado Buffalo is in the house. Buckshot Kid, Michael Uten. T5 Terps, Mr. Terrapin. Tumasta. Notre Dame walls are a-crumbling. It's going to get mighty complicated. Almighty Finn, Gene Watson, Ryan is here. Coy is here. Mr. Hawkeye is in the house. It's Sue. The H is silent. Okay. That's what I thought maybe it was. But Sue. All I know is I'm glad he's not a regent anymore at the University of Minnesota, because if he would have had it his way, the head coach of the Minnesota Golden Gophers would be getting paid about $200,000 a year. That's how radical he is. So I'm glad he's not a regent anymore. He was a handful. Holy smokes. David Griffin is in the house. Black Rain, he's checking in. He's sticking with the NFL, but he's checking in. I appreciate you, Black Rain, for checking in. Young Seminole, did you see Judge Bledsoe in North Carolina set another date? Yes, for Florida State ACC, May 2nd. We'll talk about that as well. It looks like we've got another race to the courthouse. Another race between the state of Florida and the state of North Carolina. Who is going to be able to have their final judgment on all these issues, one or the other, in all these issues? Is it going to be in Florida or North Carolina? John Dry is in the house. Ryan Brooks, PATC, on my way home. Juan Carlos Wonelli. Xmas Taxi. The PATC sent an anonymous email to the NLRB. I did not. About Notre Dame unfair labor practices. Whatever Notre Dame is doing, unfair labor practices, so is everybody else. It just so happens that NLRB took up this case. The end result of all of this is, I think we all know what it's going to be. We all know, and Michael Sue, let's just say it's Michael Sue. He wanted to do this now because he wanted to get this ball rolling on Notre Dame, because it's an election season, and depending on what happens in the elections could change the tint of who's running the National Relations Board. So that's the timing of it. Go Black 45. Expedition Greg, May 2nd. Yes, May 2nd. Steve, Bearcat Steve, thank you so much for keeping your head on a swivel, Steve. He was the person who alerted me to the Notre Dame situation. Thank you, Steve, so very much. Alan is in the house. JD Turtle, Mr. Terrapin, I am here. Ryan is here. Bob Swanger is here. VC No, never a dull moment. Morris Simmons, absolutely correct. Never a dull moment. This is where it's all heading. Judge Cooper needs to pick up the pace on Monday. Time to rule from the bench on the other two items. Well, Cooper, he was pretty quick on. It's too bad it's too bad for Florida State that it had to go into a part two. But the way Judge Cooper and that 90 minute case went to 7.5 hours. We were on the air for 7.5 hours that day. We were expecting to be on the air for 90 minutes. In some ways, Judge Cooper was slow. In some ways, he was pretty fast. You know, he was really, really fast with his ruling on one aspect of it. Yeah, it's a race. It's now a race. I saw Doug Rohan. I think Doug Rohan's going to be on with VC Knoll, Garnett and Old. I think that's later tonight. Give that a look. Garnett and Old. VC Knoll, please tell me if I'm putting out bad information. I do not want to put out bad information. I believe Doug Rohan is going to be on with Garnett and Old talking about this situation. And I think he's going to be on Garnett and Old later tonight. Doug Rohan on his Twitter account, we'll go through that. He's starting to believe that, you know, it's not going to go to a federal court. It's just going to be a race between two state cases. And who gets at the end, the finish line first, very well could be the winner. I still believe, and we'll get to it later. Cornelius Green is in the house. I still believe Amazing Blue is here. Devil Frog. I still believe, okay, tonight at 7 o'clock Eastern, so 6 o'clock. In about an hour in 2 minutes, Garnett and Old is going to have Doug Rohan on. So give it a look. I'm gonna get killed from both sides of this. Like I always do. The fat guy from Minnesota, though, I can handle it. I still think there is no quick magic potion for Florida State, Clemson, and whoever else to get out of the ACC. I still think it's going to be a decently hefty buyout. And I think Florida State and Clemson are going to be willing to pay for that hefty buyout because they're going to pay for certainty. They're going to pay for quickness. They're going to pay for they're going to pay what they need to do to get out of the conference. The ACC knows that. The ACC also has some incentive to settle because of this February 1st, 2025. But I think it's going to be up over a little bit over $200 million, somewhere above that. Get out, settlement, bam. It's going to be high enough to keep the ACC as a conference. It's going to be high enough money for the ACC schools to say, Jim Phillips, go ahead. The ACC is going to get some certainty from the ESPN on a renegotiated contract. The ACC in some level is going to survive. They're going to pocket some big money from Clemson and Florida State. I think Clemson and Florida State know this. And a couple other ACC schools. At least a couple other ACC schools. I think the word, okay, I'm going to be as nice. I am going to be as polite as possible. Greg, is it true that ESPN has given an ACC an ultimatum to settle with Florida State and Clemson, or ESPN drops a media deal? I don't believe any of this word on the street stuff. I'm not buying any of this. I'm not. They are in the courts. They're battling it out. However it looks in a couple months from now, that side's going to have a little bit more leverage on the money amount that's going to be a settlement. I believe, and it's okay if you disagree with me, I believe there's going to be a settlement. I believe Clemson and Florida State are on their way out. I think it's a little bit more money than Clemson and Florida State people would like it to be, but it's going to be. And I think the ACC is going to be able to survive. And I don't think there's any magic potion. I think ESPN is being very careful on any communication with the ACC. They're giving the ACC valuations, which are allowed to do. But I don't think the ESPN's putting the screw on the ACC at all. There is a lot out there I'm not buying. There's a lot out there that the people I talk to are not buying. This is a grind. This is a grind. And we're going to keep grinding away. In fact, let me just show you. This is what we're looking at. And we will get to the main story here in a second. Now, yesterday, I was hoping something would pop. It didn't pop. It hasn't popped yet today. But if you look at the Pickens County, you will see there's some electronic amended summons and complaint. An amended complaint filed for Clemson. Okay, if you look at this, it's a notification transmitted to these individuals. I know this is hard for you to see, but the following people were served electronically. Matthew Todd Carroll, Atlantic Coast Conference. Kevin H. Hall for Atlantic Coast Conference. C. Mitchell Brown for Clemson University. Benjamin Rush Smith for Clemson University. David Edison Dukes for Clemson University. Charles Franklin Turner Jr. for Clemson University. Axton Dylan Crawley for Clemson University. Document submitted. Amended summons and complaint filed by or on behalf of Axton Dylan Crawley for Clemson University. Now, we happened to yesterday morning at about 10 o'clock Central Time. About 10 o'clock Central Time, I got the heads up on that something was going to be filed in Pickens County. So I'm looking at Pickens County. And I'm hitting the refresh button. And then bam, at, 1:05 Eastern Time, 12:05. A couple minutes after the electronic file, I communicated with 3 different lawyers. 2 of them saying, yes, we're going to be seeing an amended complaint by Clemson University at some point. So when that hits, if it hits during this live show, we're going to cover it. Whenever it hits, we're gonna cover it at Peek Around the Corner. That's why on X at Flug Empire, I was putting out those tweets about me waiting for this story to drop. And then finally, I told everybody exactly what I was waiting on. So we're keeping an eye on that. This is a grind. And no, the Super League, there is no Super League going on. Super League's not happening, guys. The Super League of the Big Ten and the SEC separating themselves and having their own playoffs. Remember how many times on this show I said that's not happening now? If it happens at all, it's going to be 6 years, 7 years, or later. Remember how many times I said that? And they did not break away, but I'm still getting people telling me it's happening. It's not happening. That Super League isn't happening, and the Super League of 70 is not happening. None of this is happening. I'm sorry to be the guy who keeps popping people's balloons, but none of that is happening. There is enough big stuff going on right now. I don't know where people are hearing this. I have no idea. I cannot control what's outside the doors of the studio, PATC Studios, but I do control what's coming, what information comes in here, and none of that is happening. Most of these rumors is just, sure, Greg, once the Big Ten went to 18 teams, there's just no, the economics, none of it spells Super League. Washington and Oregon had to come in as a discount to the Big Ten. ESPN would not pay a nickel more for the ninth conference game. For a ninth conference game in the SEC. The SEC is in such an incredibly valuable conference. And they could not get a nickel more for having a ninth conference game from ESPN. Let me, okay, I'm bouncing around here because there's so much to cover. There is so much to cover. A little scoop for you on this fine, dreary, depending on your location, Thursday, Alex Sherman. The NBA and its incumbent partners, Disney, and Warner Brothers Discovery are unlikely to strike a deal by April 22nd. That means the league can start talking to outside partners. ESPN, there might be a third partner within, instead of just TNT, under WBD and ESPN, Disney, there might be a third partner. There might be a fourth media partner. We don't know what's going to happen. It looks like it's going to go out of the exclusive window. The media market is tight. NBA is looking for more cash. ESPN is tightening up their wallet. And people are talking Super League in college football. It's not happening, guys. There is no truth to it at all. And there are shows out there that keep pumping this over and over and over again. The Monty Show. Again, I want to be kind. He used to work for ESPN. I don't know. He keeps saying this is going to happen. In what world? ESPN, SEC is not going away as a conference. They're just not. Those schools, again, we've got stories on Missouri today. We've got stories on Missouri for stadium renovations. They know how much they're going to get for the next 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, 9 years, that SEC deal. SEC's not going to pull back. They're not going to split up their teams to be in different divisions. The SEC is not going to be saying bye to the SEC network. The SEC schools want to play each other more often. No offense to Big Ten. No offense to ACC. No offense to Big 12. The SEC wants to be the SEC. Their teams want to play each other. Yes, Vanderbilt. Oh, Vanderbilt should be kicked out. Why? Why should Vanderbilt be kicked out? It's just, all of it is completely nonsense. It's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. Okay. We've got other, it's a, okay. So let's go to, we got a Holy Smokes Theater update. We've got so much going on. Notre Dame, Dennis Dodd just filed the unfair labor practice charge to NLRB against Notre Dame, similar to USC, Pac-12, NCAA complaint. Players misidentified as student athletes involves all Notre Dame athletes. All Notre Dame athletes will go to Indianapolis NLRB office. So, this affects the Notre Dame football, independent football program. This affects the ACC because Notre Dame's, all their sports are with the ACC except for football and hockey. And this involves the Big Ten because of the Notre Dame men's hockey program. Yes, so when Notre Dame athletes become employees of the university, if Notre Dame decides they want to go down that pathway, and I think they will, but I think probably it's a question that's going to be answered internally at Notre Dame. But they've got a lot of money. Notre Dame is just announced, they're going to announce officially at their spring practice football, their spring football game this Saturday, a big, what are they building again? Some sort of athletic village building. I can't remember exactly what it is. There's so many stories of renovations that are going on. Notre Dame is putting they're putting at least $150 million into it. So yeah, I think Notre Dame is going to make the same decision as most, if not all, that they're going to have their student athletes become employees. It's just going to be a whole lot more complicated for Notre Dame. Some of their athletes are going to be negotiating with who? The university. Some of their athletes are going to be negotiating with who? The ACC. Some of their athletes are going to be negotiating with who? The Big Ten. Holy smokes. And this is the charge. It's impossible to see, but it's that's the official paperwork. And then hold on one second. Amanda Christovich for Front Office Sports about an hour ago reporting on this. A complaint has been filed against Notre Dame with the National Labor Relations Board. Same unfair labor practice charge as several other existing NLRB cases that Notre Dame has illegally classified athletes as student athletes rather than employees. The complaint was filed by former Minnesota Regent, who has filed several other complaints with NLRB and a whole lot of other complaints Oh, if anybody's going to file it, it's this gentleman. Filed several other complaints with NLRB attempting to get college athletes to be classified as employees. Notably, one against Northwestern and another against the entire Ivy League. Sue tells me that the strategy is related to joint employer doctrine, which means that if you can prove multiple entities like the NCAA and a school are employers, then you can grant jurisdiction to public athletes. Sue filed against Notre Dame because it's a private school, but there's no conference for football, at least. He hopes it will eventually be consolidated into another case he's filed against the NCAA, but that is on hold while the USC NLRB case takes place. Without a conference for football, that's one less joint employer making the argument that the NCAA and Notre Dame are joint employers of players easier, Sue says. Although the ACC will come into play at some point as non-football players are ACC members. And the hockey players. So the Big Ten will come in to play as well. As for timing, Sue wants to get the case started quickly before the general election. The NLRB's board and general counsel are controlled by each presidential administration, meaning partisan leanings could affect future rulings. So that's the story from Amanda Christovich. Again, it's all heading the same way eventually. This is about Notre Dame today, but the USC case, if that goes the way that the Dartmouth case went, it's going to blow the whole system up. And today was the last day of the hearing on it. It was Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday this week. I don't know when the ruling's coming. I do not know when the ruling is coming. And again, I asked this question over TCU Horned Frogs losing a very valuable defensive tackle in the portal today. And then it comes down to when all these cases, when the USC case comes down, the ruling on it, and if it all goes the way of student athletes having to become employees, then the question is, what entity is going to end up negotiating with the student athletes? Who's going to represent the student athletes? Who's going to represent the employees, the athletes? Who's going to represent them? And then the main question I have is who's going to represent the universities? I think it's going to be conferences, by single conferences. What do you think? Let me know in the chat or let me know in the phone calls later in the show. Who is going to represent the universities? The universities themselves, or the conference, or a larger body? The NCAA, or whatever you want to call this larger body. Who is going to represent the institutions? The institutions themselves, the conferences, or a larger body? Don't know the answer to any of that. I would say that $120 million exit fee is going to be about 85. And then the rest of it, the gore, I think is going to be at around more than 120 million. So I think we're going over 200 million. And then maybe Florida State and Clemson pays even a little bit more just to get it done. That's what I think we're heading to. Things are getting interesting. Again, we're waiting on Pickens County. And I'm going to get to the Holy Smokes Theater next. We're waiting on Pickens County. There was an amended summons complaint filed. Clemson filed it 4/17 yesterday. The complaint hasn't dropped. We have not been able to see it yet. So we're waiting on that. Whenever that happens, we're coming on live at Peek Around the Corner. And we're going to talk about it. Remember, in Mecklenburg County, there was amended complaints filed. Well, Clemson has already filed an amended complaint in Pickens County against the ACC. So we're waiting on that. Let me get rid of that. Holy smokes. Hold on, everybody. Okay. Now, before this Notre Dame big story dropped, we were going to title this show, the main story was going to be the Holy Smokes Theater, the matinee, Pack 2 and Friends. So buckle up, brace for impact. We actually received this information. We're going to spill out just a little bit more information. On Tuesday, we went through the seating arrangement in the Holy Smokes Theater. The matinee, we're not talking about the nighttime show, which is the ACC Drama. This is Pack 2 and Friends. We said that Washington State and Oregon State were in the VIP section. Maria Hernandez Garcia Flugar is in the now, she is the moderator. She rules with an iron fist. She just has a different device, so she shows up differently. So everybody act accordingly, because the moderator, the one who rules with an iron fist, is in the chat. Okay, so this was the situation. Washington State and Oregon State. This was April 16th, Tuesday. Up in the VIP box. Nobody on the stage. This was 2 days ago. And sitting in the 40th row was UTSA, North Texas, Memphis, and Rice. Sitting in the 25th row was Tulane and Navy, sitting together with a bowl of popcorn sitting in between them. In the 15th row was San Jose State, Wyoming, Utah State, Hawaii, Nevada, New Mexico, all sitting in the 15th row. very nervous. In the fifth row was Boise State, Air Force, Fresno State, Colorado State, San Diego State, and UNLV. We have movement in the Holy Smokes Theater. We've got 3 schools on center stage. 3 of them. In other words, these 3 schools would be the most interested. How it was told to us, these were the 3 schools that Washington State and Oregon State would target first. They are the biggest dominoes in creating a conference. Now remember, the choice is always out. The option is always out there that Washington State and Oregon State would say, okay, all Mountain West schools, come on in. We'll be a 14-member football conference, but 14 members in football, including Hawaii. That means Washington State and Oregon State wouldn't have to spend some of their money on exit fees for the Mountain West schools to go over and be part of the new PAC conference. That's always an option. It's not the leading, it's not the chalk. It's not the chalk. Not right now. Not here, peek around the corner, it's not. Not from what we're being told. So while Boise State, Air Force, Fresno State, Colorado State, San Diego State, and UNLV were all in the 5th row together, 3 of those schools have been called up on the stage. So on April 18th, this is the current seating arrangements. This is what's going on in the MAA Drama. Boise State, Fresno State, and San Diego State are on center stage. Boise State, Fresno State, San Diego State are on the stage. Those are the 3 that Washington State and Oregon State want those dominoes to fall first. If they can get those individually, then the option of not having to bring on all the Mountain West schools, that option starts to deteriorate even more. Boise State, Fresno State, San Diego State. Boise State, the big brand football program, and the 2 institutions in California, San Diego State and Fresno State. That is what Oregon State and Washington State would target first. So all 3 of those schools are up on the stage. In the first row is Colorado State. And then in the second row is Air Force and UNLV. So you've already got 3 different tiers. 3 different tiers when it comes to those 6 most valuable Mountain West school programs from what we are being told. So I'm going to say it once again. Boise State, Fresno State, San Diego State are on the stage. Those 3 programs going to be targeted first to see if Washington State and Oregon State going to be able to peel them off. Remember, well, I'll get to that in a second. And then Colorado State is in the first row. Air Force and UNLV is in the second row. I'm going to tell you guys something. On April 16th, we reported the initial seating arrangement inside the Holy Smokes Theater. Later that day, or it might have been yesterday. I think it was yesterday, Wednesday. We didn't have a show yesterday. It was reported by two people. I think one of them was John Casano and somebody else, that we are going to hear, and this is what we have heard. This is part of the reason why we're doing this. It's part of the reason why we started the matinee on Tuesday, April 16th. We are going to hear soon the media agreement that Oregon State and Washington State received for the next 2 years when it comes to the football content. We're going to hear that pretty quickly. Now, why is that important? Because that had to get done. That had to get to the end of the process before it was announced. That had to get to the end of the process for then Washington State and Oregon State, knowing what their evaluation was as an independent, quasi-independent football program next 2 years, they could work with those media partners and get some valuations on the creation of a new conference in 2 years from now. The first brick had to be laid, and that is Washington State, Oregon State, media deal, football content, next 2 years. That has been done, or it's about to reveal itself to all of you. Now, because that is done, this is the next part they're working on. They couldn't have not have started this if that first part wasn't done. So you're going to be hearing some news soon that the media agreement, we're going to find out what the media agreement was. Oregon State, Washington State. The rest of the Holy Smokes Theater, we're going to keep as is. There were people on X, people on message boards that talked about what I said during a live show on Tuesday, and they kind of said, this is the pecking order for Washington State and Oregon State. How Greg has the schools seated in the Holy Smokes Theater is the pecking order. No, it's not. Some of it is, some of it isn't. Remember, interest has to flow both ways. And if it does, then the schools get up on the stage or they get real close to the stage. But if you don't know if you have interest, even if you have interest from Washington State and Oregon State, you're going to be sitting in the back. Tulane and Navy are in the 25th row, not because of lack of interest from Oregon State and Washington State. They're in the 25th row because it's going to be more difficult to get those two institutions into your conference. You see what I'm saying? San Jose State is in the 15th row. Tulane is in the 25th row. But they don't have the same value. Tulane has more. However, we got them in the 25th row because it's going to be harder. That's going to be a harder domino for Oregon State and Washington State to tip over. So just one more time before we get to your phone calls, you can talk Notre Dame. You can talk your football team in spring. We got a bunch of spring games coming up this Saturday. Before we get to it all, Boise State, Fresno State, San Diego State are the three targets that Washington State and Oregon State would like to see if they can peel them off independently and see if that can be the beachhead and where they create a Frankenstein conference that's going to get valued more than any other G5 conference out there. It's a start. This started on Tuesday. This is your first update on Thursday, April 18th. This story has just begun. We're just at the beginning of this matinee Holy Smokes Theater. And if you're new to this channel, this is what we do when try to explain the nuggets of information we get here at Peek Around the Corner. And if you've been here, you know how we nailed it with the Big 12. We're doing just fine with the ACC. Remember, we had Florida State at the center of the stage, then Clemson. Colorado's at the center of the stage for the Big 12. At the center of the stage in this matinee, Pac-2 and friends, Boise State, Fresno State, San Diego State. Those three, with Colorado State in the first row. Okay, let me get to your phone calls. Let it rip about anything. It don't matter. Something in college football. We've covered a lot again today. 763-260-1333. 763-260-1333. Give me a call. We've talked about Notre Dame, NLRB, unfair labor practices. We've talked about the state of Virginia. Basically, the state of Virginia, Governor Youngkin, given the institutions to be able to negotiate NIL opportunities with their student athletes, and there can be no outside body that can basically tell them, no, you can't. Dennis Dodd, so many things going on.
Call from
Crab Cakes and Football.
Crab Cakes and Football. The floor is yours. How are you doing, Mr. Terrapin?
It is hot out here, Greg. It is hot.
Hot? In Maryland?
I'm in South Carolina. I live in South Carolina now.
It's freezing cold in Minnesota.
Yeah, I drive a truck and the heater or the AC went out, so it feels like it's a heater blowing the whole time.
Yeah, Minnesota did not have a spring football game. And I've been telling people that like 5 out of the last 6 years, Minnesota spring football game had to be moved inside their athletic football facility, which is a big facility. It's 100 yards, and then it's 10 yards in both end zones. You can punt it. It's a big, beautiful indoor practice football facility because, quite frankly, Minnesota needs it more than anybody else does. But still, to have a spring football game being played in, you can put about 1,000 fans in there. It's dreadful. Minnesota gave up. They gave up that we're not going to do this anymore because it's always bad weather. So people are telling me, Greg, why don't Minnesota have it on April 20th, right? Pretty much the latest you can do it because of a lot of university scheduling, right, of these student athletes. I said, fine, but, it's going to be bad weather on April 20th. Tomorrow, we got a freezing warning for Friday going into Saturday. It's going to be 30-some degrees. I mean, Minnesota cannot have a spring football game. There's always bad weather. So let's just not have that conversation anymore. Crab Cakes and Football, the floor is yours.
I got a little bit to go through, so
got it.
I'll start with Notre Dame. Do you think this, obviously, it's just, once they go through the courts and mostly lose, do you think that would be the angle that brings Notre Dame on board to joining a conference, not just Big Ten, but any conference? Because I think the money that's going to be required is going because they're not rich. They've already had one Notre Dame college shut down a couple months ago. Subsidiary college shut down.
I just think it's another closing of the walls on Notre Dame.
It has to be.
I think it's going to be just so difficult. I think it's going to get more and more difficult. But, could they stay independent football until 2029? Sure. But it's going to get more and more difficult for them to keep up. And it's going to be complicated, man. Notre Dame, now, again, when, I shouldn't say if, when these student athletes become employees, their representation, who do they negotiate with? Once we find the answer to that, then I think we're going to find out what happens with Notre Dame. Because if it's by individual conferences, which I think it's going to be, then it's going to be so complicated for Notre Dame. They have their hockey players under the Big Ten umbrella, the rest of their athletes under the ACC umbrella, their football players under their independent University of Notre Dame umbrella. It's going to get awfully complicated.
I think this gives them an excuse. I think the higher-ups, forget the president's name now, but instead of saying, we're joining a football conference because of, now they can say, we've got the world against us. Now we've got this ruling that's gone against us. It's going to be, that will be their backstop story to tell everybody who wants to remain independent.
Sure.
And they will go, okay, now at least I can see, and it's not just us caving into pressure to join a conference. It's something feasible. So that was point number one. I really have nothing else to add to that because it was just a question. The Frankenstein conference that Oregon State and Washington State's trying to put together. If successful, do you think that's the path forward for all the other G5s to try to pick apart their conferences and trying to create new ones? Because you're going to have some schools out there when the ACC falls and whenever that happens, and you can pretty much name the 7 right off the top before you start getting into if. And they're going to be sitting there as the next round of Oregon State and Washington State going, let's start our own conference. Let's start picking the remainder of what we can get and to go against that one and get a new TV media deal. Yeah, it may not be a monster one like the other leagues are getting, but it's going to be bigger than what the G5 regular conferences are getting because you're taking what's the best available and putting them in the conference. So I think that might be their.
Yeah, it's not just the money that's the motivator, which is a very big deal, but it's. You remember the G5 conferences have a playoff access, right? It's going to be they're going to be at least one conference outside the Power 4 conference champions that are going to get a berth into the playoffs because it's the top 5 ranked conference champions. So and if that goes forward from 2026 and beyond, and we don't know that because we don't know what the format's going to be for 2026 and beyond, heavily dictated by the SEC and the Big Ten. But we do know there's going to be a playoff. There's going to be a playoff slot for a G5 champion. That is protected between 2026 2031. So if Oregon State and Washington State, they got that in the back of their mind, the more value the conference they create not only helps them with the potential media partners and getting more money, but it helps them with the ability for that conference champion to have an inside edge on getting a playoff berth over the other G5 conferences. So if they're successful in picking up the top Mountain West value brands and possibly a couple of the AAC schools, then I think there is that rising chance that you're going to see another Frankenstein G5 conference created out of the other G5 conferences. The best value brands might try to come together, like a Liberty, UAB, I don't know, the top brands coming together to form Appalachian State to form another Frankenstein. It could be. That could be the result.
And my final question, and I'm just going to, did I miss an update on Leon County? Because you said something like Florida State got better news or something like that earlier, and I was like, did I miss an update? So I had been looking, and I didn't find anything.
No,
so
there is there's just a, and I'll go through that right now. Once you hang up, I'll go through that.
All right.
All right. I appreciate the phone call.
Yeah.
I will go through that real quick.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Great call.
All right. Bye.
Bye. I'm gonna. So this is what Doug Rohan posted on the question that Crab Cakes and Football just gave to us. Breaking ACC FSU litigation news out of North Carolina. Judge Bledsoe has scheduled a new hearing on May 2nd to address recent filings and the request of Florida State to stay discovery pending their appeal to the North Carolina Court of Appeals. More details in comment below. So, the procedural status of this is Doug Rohan, is that Florida State filed an appeal of Judge Bledsoe's order denying Florida State's motion to stay in North Carolina. Both parties were ordered to converse and determine if they were on the same page and could agree on a plan for discovery moving forward. The parties submitted their brief on the 16th, laying out their positions. Florida State wants to put all discovery on hold while waiting for the results of the appeal. By my estimation, a process that could take months, not weeks, but there are occasions where his hot profile cases can get fast-tracked, then weeks would be more likely. The ACC is saying there is no need to delay discovery because Florida State wants discovery in Florida anyway. We might as well do both sets of discovery at the same time since the arguments are similar. Judge Bledsoe will hear from both sides on May 2nd at 9:30 a.m. to determine which party should prevail on this issue. Hint, hint, it will be the ACC. Doug Rohan. So why is this important? Well, as I have started to discuss in the last few appearances, with a new one tonight with Garnett and Old at 7 p.m., if these cases are not removed to federal court, and I'm starting to agree with the attorneys who have advised me that this will not go federal, then we will have two state court cases operating on a parallel track. This means that the first case to finish will have to be recognized by the other state under the full faith and credit clause of Article 4, Section 1 of the U.S. Constitution. If you thought the race to the courthouse to file first was wild, just wait until two judges are trying to advance these cases as fast as they can procedurally while the foreign party in each state is dragging their feet, doing everything they can to slow down the case. This is yet another reason why settlement and not a full presentation of the cases is the most likely outcome. ESPN will not have the patience to let this drag out beyond the February 25th deadline to exercise their option for the ACC contract. They will be looking for some degree of certainty by the time the 2024 season kicks off. And to me, the money shot of Doug Rohan's post, this is yet another reason why settlement and not a full presentation of the cases is the most likely outcome, because the ACC, they're not in control of what judge can procedurally move their case faster than the other. The ACC does not have a certainty on that. Neither does Florida State, and especially Clemson. There is no certainty in this. This is the grind. This is the risk that both parties are taking. And I agree with Doug Rohan. I think there's going to be a settlement. I probably think there's going to be a higher settlement. I think it's going to be above $200 million. Between $200 million, let's say $240. But there it is. So May 2nd, Mecklenburg County. And then we got Monday, April 22nd in Leon County. We're going to be covering that live in front of Judge C. Cooper, 9:30 Eastern Time, PATC. Come join us. We're going to be doing a live show. We're going to give you a live stream inside the courthouse, just like we did on April 9th. We're going to be there as long as it takes, just like we did on April 9th. Hopefully it won't go 7.5 hours, but if it does, PATC will be there. So if you haven't done so yet, please subscribe to our channel, open up the notifications, and hopefully you can join us on Monday morning. Phone lines are open, 763-260-1333. So I'm hoping that Doug Rohan's post answered Crab Cakes and Football's questions. And again,
Call from
Big Ten brother.
Big Ten brother is on the line.
Hey, what's going on, Greg?
Good. It's going good. I got an echo.
Big Ten brother. Can you hear me, or you got the echo?
I still got I got an echo.
All right, let me call you back.
Yeah. I'm hearing myself on the line there. Something was coming on through. Yes, Justin Lucas, I did provide an update. on the Pac-2 and Friends. The update was there are 3 targets. Washington State and Oregon State are targeting these 3 schools first. If there's interested in these 3 schools first, now remember, I don't have to go down that rabbit hole because it's not really a conference. But the 3 schools is Boise State, Fresno State, San Diego State. Those 3 schools are at the center of the stage. If Washington State and Oregon State can get traction with those 3 schools to create a Frankenstein conference, in other words, take some of the Mountain West to begin with, then if they get traction with those 3 schools, then this might all fall into place for Oregon State and Washington State. Again, there's always the option of taking all the Mountain West schools, putting them into your, becoming a 14-member football conference. You don't have to spend any money on Mountain West exit fees. But Washington State and Oregon State are looking at option 1 very carefully. Frankenstein Conference.
Call from
Immaculate.
Immaculate Mr. Hawkeye is on the line. The floor is yours.
Well, first off, I just want to share it to the gentleman who just called. He could fix it probably just by muting his YouTube. I think that was just coming through in the background.
Yeah.
But I'll try to be quick so we can call right back in. I'm just kind of curious what you think about this Notre Dame situation. There was another reporter who was putting her stuff, Amanda, she was putting her stuff on X, who she actually talked with that ex-regent of yours?
Yeah, I went through her tweets.
Yeah.
Yep.
And what do you think about that? I mean, it kind of sounds like it's just as much about the NCAA as it is Notre Dame.
Yep.
Like it's really kind of going after the whole joint employer situation there, and almost kind of trying to force the NCAA to back out, get away, leave all this to the top schools. I don't. Do you get that at all out of it?
Yeah, I think the USC case does that as well already. So.
Yeah, and this one might be stronger though. Like I mean, the USC case that was going, and then they paused it. Like they just hold up, pause, and then now they're just resuming it. So something happened there. Who knows what? And then to have this one coming out now, just after that one restarted back up, I'm kind of wondering. I would not be shocked if that USC case does not go as some people think. But this Notre Dame one, I mean, they're independent in football. They're not in a conference.
Yeah.
So
now this is all Notre Dame athletes. So football, yep.
And so if that USC one's not going to end as people think, this one's there to then be picked up. But to me, you remove the NCAA from the situation in terms of at least giving autonomy to the autonomous conferences to where the NCAA is not in it. Then those conferences could take over the situation, and maybe, I don't know, do you think that's different, or is it just trading one joint employer situation for another?
Between USC and Notre Dame?
Well, say if NCAA was to give up autonomy to the autonomous conferences, and say that the conferences, is that still a joint employer situation where they could still, they're trying to push into the public sector via joint employer. That's really what they're doing.
Yeah.
But they're using private schools
to
do it.
Yeah.
And so I'm just wondering if all the public schools are watching this, looking at this, going, okay, we see where they're going. They need to prepare this too, even though this is Notre Dame. They need to look at that situation and say, okay, so they're actually coming after us too. And if the NCAA being part of this gives them that angle, then how do we kind of distance ourselves from that so the whole joint employer status can be questioned or pushed back upon? That kind of seems like he's just using Notre Dame, right? They're just using some of these schools, and so I think that's what's going on, and that might cause progress to happen in directions that people might not be looking at right now. I don't know. That was all I really caught. I was kind of curious what you thought about that.
It sounds like Michael Sue has a few other things going on. Like I think it said it basically. There's another one that's been on pause that NLRB put on pause until this USC case is figured out. So, yeah, I mean they're covering all. Dartmouth is just with Dartmouth. USC is with USC, NCAA, Pac-12. Notre Dame, it sounds like it's just Notre Dame, but it's going to be NCAA because there's no conference involved with the football. It sounds like they're just going to cover it all, and I think everyone's got to prepare that the rulings are going to come down in favor of unfair labor practices, that the student athletes are not going to have to become employees. That's how I'm looking at it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's how most people are, right?
Yeah.
I just think that there's going to be a lot of quiet power exerted in this. Like, the media, expect the media to talk the way the media is going to talk. I mean, they clearly are feeling one way about it, and I think a lot of people agree with that, myself included. But it's just like caution. Like, there's going to be a lot of power that's going to push back against us, and it's not going to happen loudly. It's going to happen very quietly, and that's what happened with Northwestern. And I don't see any difference between Northwestern and USC. The only difference now is NIL. So that might make the difference But otherwise, they could just go down the line and use the exact same precedents and explanations used in the Northwestern case to explain a similar decision in USC. Northwestern changes that. That's why I'm wondering, because USC got paused. They just stopped. Like, hold up. They were there in the middle of testimonies and everything, and they just stopped.
Yeah.
And they just now resumed. So, I mean, there's some reason for that we don't know. I don't know if it wasn't going well or if they needed some new evidence or some new testimony. Don't know. But something caused that one to just pause for a few months. So
Yeah.
I kind of wonder if maybe Notre Dame is them preparing the next one. Like maybe they're not quite sure about USC, so it's like, okay, let's take the hybrid, which is now the one in between, right? Like it's really the only one of its kind that has both independent and conference ties to it. So I don't know. We'll see on that. Interesting stuff on the Oregon State. I think you're probably right on. The ones that they would first talk to are Boise, Fresno, and San Diego. Those are the top choices out west.
Yeah,
so
we were given that.
Appreciate it again.
We were given that information during our live show Tuesday, but I just
is that what's going on?
Huh?
Is that what's going on?
Yeah, and it had me fumbling around a bit. I just didn't want to go with it until I had long conversations about it. But yeah, so we'll see if there's any traction. You know, who knows? I mean, Boise State, San Diego State, Fresno State might think, geez, does this really help us out? I mean, who knows, right? This is just the beginning of the process. And I think we're going to hear more about it with national reporters here pretty soon.
Yeah, I think hopefully here soon, a lot of these different dots, they start to have lines connecting them,
Yeah.
And some of the big picture stuff will start to make more sense to everybody as we start to see where all the connections are. Because right now, there's just a whole lot of data points. So
Yeah.
Appreciate them, man.
You got it, buddy.
Let the other guys get back in here, but talk to you later.
Got it. Thank you. Great call, Mr. Hot Guy Immaculate. Phone lines open, 763-260-1333. A lot of big spring football games coming up Saturday. Michigan, Florida State, Nebraska.
Call from
Big Ten, brother.
Big Ten, brother. Thanks for calling again, sir. The floor is yours.
Hey, buddy. Yeah, that sounds better. Hey, I want to talk about Notre Dame. For me and my brother were talking about this. Yeah, my other brother played in the Big Ten. With Notre Dame, boy, first of all, I think the reason they're going after Notre Dame is because I think they see, well, one, it's high profile. I think they're going to want to, how lawyers are, if they can get on TV and all that stuff. But the other thing is because Notre Dame isn't as, like Michigan, Ohio State, they're protected because they're in a conference. So if you're going to fight them, you're going to fight 18 schools. I think they see Notre Dame as an easy target. Like, look, they're independent. They got a hockey team in the Big Ten. They got non-revenue sports over in the ACC. They're going to be frustrated. They're going to want to, you know what I mean? It seems like an easy target. Like, we'll deal directly with Notre Dame. We don't have to worry about the conference. And they're going to look at it and go, well, we can't do that because our hockey team's over. Oh, we can't do that because we're over here in the ACC. And I think they think it'll be an easy win. I think that's what they're thinking. And the reason I say that is because, like I said, I talked to my brother playing the BA. He's a business agent in a union. So I asked him, like, well, what does the union do? And he just says, I think they're going for the easy win at first. But
I
one other thing,
think they can directly go at public universities. I think they have to go at the private universities first, and then get it connected with the Big Ten, with the public universities. That's what they went. Dartmouth first, USC, Notre Dame. Those are all three private institutions.
Okay, well, that's part of it. Then it's easy. So they can't go after public. Why not?
I would have to go back. I shut down the website.
Okay.
Immaculate or somebody else can explain it better than I can. They're trying to attach the public universities to this by getting all the private, they're going after the private universities first. But there is some sort of reason why. I can't remember why. I can't remember right now the reason, but I'll try to get you that information.
I'll ask my brother because he's a BA business agent, and I'll have him look into it, and I'll call you back if he has a good answer. But the other thing that's more important that I want to point out about Notre Dame and independence is I don't know. I know their fans don't see this because they keep planting the flag. We're independent. We're independent. We're independent. But are you really independent? I mean, you have to go knock on the door to the ACC, and for them to take your Olympic sports or your non-revenue sports, you just ripped the schedule in half and gave them half your games and said, fine, take half our games, we'll play you. So half your games are going into a conference, and then you get to every conference, whether it's ACC or SEC plays 8 games, the Big Ten plays 9 games. So every conference gets to play 3 games of their choice, like Ohio State might play Toledo, Bowling Green, and someone else. You get to pick 3 different teams that it's just a one and done. You don't have to return the favor and go to their place the following year. So conference teams get to pick 3 games that they want to play. Then they play their conference games. So Notre Dame, if they join a conference, the only thing that would change would be, since they give 6 games to the ACC, they get to play 3 games of their choice. They're only really independent for 3 games where they can point to and say, yeah, but if you're in a conference, we lose these 3 games. We have to play those 3 games in a conference. So you're telling me you're staying independent for 3 games?
I look at it as they're staying independent for 4 games. But you and I are on the same wavelength on this. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
I don't know if they're giving ACC 5 games or 16, but okay, let's say split. Yeah, I always just say half the schedule. But to me, I get why the fans say that because they don't look at it that way. But to me, if I'm looking at Big Ten, the money difference, and let's say they get to pick 4 games. Who gets 3 games, 4 games, 6 games? Who cares? Because your independence would be like how you were in the 70s. Like you could pick all 12 games, play where you want, when you want, how you want. That's independence. Yeah. Right now, you owe the Big Ten because of the hockey team. They can call you on the carpet and say, you got to play us twice a year or you take back your hockey team. ACC can call you on the carpet for stuff. So you're answering the 2 conferences because of your non-revenue sports for what, 3 or 4 games? And you're going to give up the money? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mostly agree with you. Back in the day, it was important for Notre Dame to have that national schedule. They had the freedom to do all their 12 games or 11 games back in the day, however they wanted. And I understand that. And plus, they got treated harshly by some schools and forces in the Big Ten and others, bigotry, whatever you want to call it. So I completely understand that. What I would argue with a lot of Notre Dame fans is this. I don't think Notre Dame independence gives them more value. And I know they hold that tightly, but I think Notre Dame, being Notre Dame, regardless, like, for example, if Notre Dame joined the ACC 10 years ago, in my estimation, my opinion, they would still be Notre Dame. If they join the Big Ten now, 10 years from now, they're still going to be Notre Dame. They're Notre Dame because they're Notre Dame, not because of independence, in which is only a fracture of their football games anyways. Right.
Yeah. And you're giving up all that money, Greg, to say that it's like a false, we're independent, but you're really not in it. Okay, for 4 games, congratulations. You get to pick 4 games that the other conferences don't get to pick because they're in a conference. Is it really worth being halfway behind the SEC, the Big Ten, all that money, and it multiplies every year. So if you're 40 million the first year, then you're 80 million the next. So Rutgers is making all that money for 4 games. Is that really? I guess if that's what's making you happy, go ahead. But I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me. It used to make sense back in the 60s, 70s, when they were the only team that played a national TV schedule, and they did get to play their whole schedule where they wanted. That made sense to me. You'd be crazy to join a conference if you got to pick 11 or 12 games, play them where you want, daytime, nighttime. But right now, the way they have to answer to too many people, the hockey, the Big Ten, the ACC, it's just like you really aren't independent. If the ACC calls you in, you got to go. If the Big Ten calls you in, you got to go meet with them because you're a hockey team. Those days are over, and you're right, 100%. Notre Dame is Notre Dame no matter where they go. Just like Alabama's Alabama, Georgia's Georgia, Michigan. Yeah. If they join the Big Ten, it's not like, oh, all that tradition out the window. It's gone. Forget it. They were, you know what I mean? So I don't understand it, Greg. I really don't.
I agree. Thanks. Beautiful call.
Thanks, buddy. Talk to you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Great call. Tom DeBay, Notre Dame stays independent because they keep their TV revenue. Everybody keeps their TV revenue. If Notre Dame was in the Big Ten, they'd be making more TV revenue than they do now. So I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. Please explain it to me, DeBay. Immaculate. Well, they have 7 games they schedule independently. Well, the Purdue Boilermakers have 3 games they schedule independently. So basically, Notre Dame has 4 games, as I said during the call, in which their independence of a football program, they have control over 4 games more than I guess anybody else does. I don't know. I don't know. Notre Dame is Notre Dame. The value of being an independent football program, it just isn't what it used to be. And I think that is going to get less and less as time goes on. Phone lines open, 763-260-1333. And I'm going to check real quick. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Get yourself notified. Open up your notifications because we can come on live at any time. We are still looking. We're still looking. Something's going to pop in Pickens County. Something is going to pop here. We've got an amended complaint filed by Clemson. It just hasn't been dropped for public view. Okay? But we know we had something drop. Amended complaint. Electronic notifications yesterday, April 17th. So we're waiting for that to drop. When it drops, we're going to be coming on live. So you've got to get yourself notified and all that stuff. Okay, I think we're going to close it up. I think we're going to close up our live show. We have got, I'm working on another story this evening. We have so much that is going on here at Peek Around the Corner. It is at times overwhelming. So again, please have your notifications on. Subscribe to our channel. I want to thank everybody for I want to thank everybody for your donations, for the great chats in the chat room, and for your great phone calls. But I think we're going to close it up. I'm going to be working tonight on another story. So brace for impact, buckle up, keep your head on a swivel. Notre Dame, NLRB, the state of Virginia, giving more control to the universities in the state of Virginia when it comes to NIL with their student athletes. We got Clemson about to drop something in Pickens County. And then, of course, what's going on between Florida State and the ACC. So get ready. Open up your notifications for tomorrow, even for tonight. And we'll see you real soon once again. Until next time, from all of us at PATC to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.